all here again for HebrewInIsrael.net. Hope everyone's having a good time. And I'm back here again with another video with questions I was actually asked. And this time I have basically two questions which are divided to several pieces. So I'll try to answer every detail here. Now these questions come from a friend of mine who's been following my work. And she asked me several questions here. The first one is about blood. I've done programs about kosher food. I've done programs about what's allowed and forbidden. Obviously, if you ever have any specific question about what's clean and unclean and so on, I can answer, but you usually do have local rabbis and so on that can give you much more detailed answers because that's their field of expertise. Usually every community should have a rabbi that is an expert in giving you specific answers. And if you don't have someone immediately, there are organizations, especially in the United States and other, for example, European countries, that you can pick up the phone and ask them. These are people that their work is specifically in this field and they can give you very detailed answers if something is allowed or forbidden. Obviously, people who follow their own decree of what's clean and unclean have to make their own decisions on the spot. And I have plenty of friends like that as well, people who keep kosher and they go what's called biblically kosher, though it's a term that kosher and biblically, it's a little bit of an oxymoron because kosher is a clearly latter term that it was actually borrowed from probably the Persian language. But in any case, the first question is blood of animals. What is actually forbidden in blood of animals? So obviously, in the blood, first of all, comes out when you slaughter the animal, and that is really the more clear case of blood. That's the Torah actually forbids. It's the blood you're supposed to pour onto the ground. This term to pour into the earth, or shafachta la'aretz kamayim, to pour it down like water, is clearly the more specific prohibition of blood. So I would say, first of all, this is known as the blood, dam hanefesh, or the blood of the spirit, blood of the soul, where the animal actually dies from it. So that's blood. It's clearly forbidden. So the real question that people ask is, what do you do with blood inside the organs? Now, a couple months ago, earlier this year, or maybe even the end of 2015, an article came out by, I think, someone who claimed to be a scientist. It was published at the Israel National News website, where this person who is, as far as I could tell, is a scientist, claimed that the koshering process removes all blood from the meat. Now, I am a professional chef. I have worked with large quantities of food, including animal parts. And I have been dealing in the kitchen since around the age of 8. I have conducted my own experiments, actually, when it comes to meat and blood. And I have to basically give the thumbs down. Yes, this actually is a pagan symbol as well, but today it has secular meanings, and therefore I have no problem using it. And the fact remains that there are plenty of blood cells in the secretion of the off-white fluid that comes from the meat that you kosher. The fact remains that actually in the 10th century, even earlier, the Gaonites knew that this was the fact, and they came up with, Babylonian Gaonites, by the way, came up with this idea of having to boil the meat prior to the actual cooking to at least seal in any blood that might ooze out when you cook, or to cook something over a fire, because it presumably causes the blood to drip out. Obviously, we're not talking just about blood, we're talking about hemoglobin and other factors in blood itself, and also water. But the fact remains that really there is no actual way, and I'm saying this with 100% certainty, there is no way of completely removing blood from meat. No matter what you try to do, boil it, wash it a bazillion times. I've actually experimented in any form, every form mentioned in halachic sources of removal of blood, including soaking it for a very long time in several buckets of water and so on. None of it actually works. It is complete and utter nonsense. The thing is that this, I personally think that what's happened here specifically with this so-called experiment, which it doesn't really require much, you just take some of that liquid out of a kosher meat and you put it under a microscope and you'll be able to see blood cells. The thing is that I think that article came out more as a tap on the shoulder, oh, well ago, Judaism is so great, type of article that comes out from religious people. And I openly say, if religious people make stuff up, it's made up. If a rabbi makes a mistake, it is a mistake. And it's not disrespectful to say that. There were plenty of rabbis who openly criticized one another when they said something which was completely incorrect. Some of it actually, sometimes, at least to our eyes today, would sound a little violent. But it isn't. It's just the lingo of Mediterranean speech, which sometimes can be a little aggressive, but it's never intended to harm anyone. And what I'm saying here is not intended to harm anyone either. I'm just saying, out of the empiric work that I've done in this, I know as a fact there's no way of removing all blood. So the fact remains that you are eating some blood when you are eating your steak or your minced meat or whatever it is that you're eating. Really, the Torah prohibits the blood that comes out when you slaughter an animal, and Maimonides actually gives a very good rendition of everything that's forbidden, but Maimonides also took a very extreme approach, and he copied the idea the Geronites actually presented of how to keep your meat kosher. But the fact remains there's really no way of removing everything. I mean, even if you roast a piece of meat, you still have some coagulated blood inside your meat. There's no way of avoiding it. It might be small quantities. And this is why Maimonides also gives a very clear description of the types of blood that exist, including blood clots and things like that. So in overall, if you're not eating the blood that pours out from the animal's neck when it's slaughtered, then you're perfectly fine. Obviously, you need to wash your meat. There's always, other nasty things that can be on your meat itself, but in overall, there really are small quantities of blood that there's nothing you can do about it. The rabbinic sources knew this, and I think the Torah also was very aware of it. Then I was also asked about what do you do with blood when you bite yourself or you cut yourself and so on. Well, obviously, it goes into the question, can you eat a human being? Is being a cannibal forbidden by Torah? I would say the answer is yes, because it's not from the things which are hamutar beficha, the things which are allowed in your mouth, and therefore even the consumption of human blood would be forbidden. However, one of the things about blood as well in the halachic sources, and I think the halachic sources play a very good role here in explaining the subject, is that as long as it's inside the flesh, there's no actual problem. So, for example, if you cut yourself inside your mouth, it's still inside your body. So if you swallow it, and evidently anyone who's ever had a cut in their mouth will swallow some blood. I mean, there's really not much you can do about it. I don't think there really is a problem there. Now, obviously, if you're sucking your finger because you cut yourself, you're going to spit it out. There's no point in swallowing it. Actually might be very unhygienic, and I would just say, suck it to try to push out any dirt that might be there, but spit it out. I mean, there will be the finger is inside your mouth, and therefore it's still technically inside your body, but that might be a bit more of a problem. But again, the prohibitions on these bloods are less severe than we would say about the blood that comes out when an animal dies, which really is the forbidden blood. Everything else is just blood that's just there because it's an organ and so on. So I don't think there's any problem if you swallow blood when you cut yourself in the mouth, but when it comes to your fingers, anyhow, I would say spit it out in any case, because it's basically also unhygienic. This, by the way, stems into the question: what do you do with breast milk if a human being, an adult human being, is allowed to eat breast milk? And the answer would be, as an adult, I would say no. But as a baby, the answer would be yes, because this is nutrition of the baby. But us as adults, we have no reason to consume such a source of protein. Then I was also asked about using heart valves made from swine. That one actually is a tricky one, because in the ancient world they didn't have such things. I know that there are other things that you could use. I know the swine valves are actually one of the better ones, if I understand it correctly. I'm not a cardiologist, obviously. I'm a historian and Bible scholar. But the question is, what does it mean that you need to spurn their bodies, to despise their bodies and so on? And I think there it's mostly about the issue of actually eating and consuming it, and it really becomes part of your body. And that's where I become a little iffy about it. When you put such a valve in your body, you are going to basically be part of your body, and it's something unclean. So I would suggest, and obviously this is not a question when you're dealing with people that their lives are in danger, but there you actually have to ask a question. I would say that the issue would be that you should try to avoid those. Also, supplements. Again, it's better to avoid supplements that contain swine or anything unclean. I think that that's basically like eating. And yeah, medicine, on the other hand, if it's life-saving medicine, there's less of an issue. But if it is not life-saving medicine, I would say try to find something else. So I hope these answer the questions, and I apologize for the sweats. It's summertime here, and I actually have no air conditioning in this room. So you have to watch my glistening forehead. But in any case, hope this answers at least some of the questions. And obviously, I would recommend to go and speak with someone who's a bigger expert in the field of kosher food. There are plenty of rabbis who are experts in this field. And don't forget to follow me on Facebook and go to my website, HebrewInIsrael.net. Kol tov.